welcome back to the Backyard Professor Chess videos. Had a fun night in chess club tonight. Actually showed up and one of the kids there said, "Hey, you're the Backyard Professor," and he wanted to play me some chess, and we had fun. I had him in a great kingside attack, and he made a blunder move, and I checkmated in the next move, and then I asked him, I said, what were you thinking on that move? I mean, show me what you were thinking. And he said, well, your knight was crowding my king. And I said, all right, I understand that. Let's take back the move and let me show you what I would have, what move would you do now that you know what I'm doing? And he goes, well, you won the game, but let's play through this anyway. I want to practice. And he's a good little player, and he took the move that he should have taken. Essentially, he pushed the G-pawn instead of letting me take on 8-7 with my queen. And I'll be darned if within 15 or 20 more moves he didn't beat me. It was a close game. He's a good little player. He's taken lessons from the Idaho master over there in Boise, Velasio. I can't remember his name, but he's a great little chess player. So, we had a lot of fun in chess club. Now we're going to have a lot of fun in this Backyard Professor Chess video. I have a great game for you by Mikhail Tal. Oh, take a bow to the king. He was world champion for just 1 year, though. Just a short year, but this particular Ruy Lopez he played was for the Russian championship in 1961. Now in this particular game, Tal is playing white. His opponent is black. And it is a beautiful Ruy Lopez. Typical, brings the bishop out to hit the knight absolutely. And of course the typical a6 pawn push. This was the opening that I played with my little friend in chess club tonight. Had several other games tonight, and I went 4-0. It was a good night tonight. It was more of a fun night instead of a real serious competitive night. We were having fun. His opponent pulls the knight out. Typical Ruy Lopez moves here. And of course Tal's going to castle, which is appropriate. Bishop e7. And rook goes to e1. He's going to give his knight space for the typical maneuver of the knight in this particular kind of opening. He drops the bishop down because he's been challenged. The queen side is moving forward just a little bit now. This is all really, quite frankly, you'll see this played hundreds and hundreds of times, and in fact you yourselves will play this. It's good to be able to play this on both white and black, on both sides of the fence here. So this is pretty important. Now he pushes the c-pawn up because he's going to want to keep that bishop. Absolutely. And this gives black the opportunity to castle, which is just fine. He castles. Tal always loved to push that h3. He keeps the knight out of here. He keeps the bishop out of here. It kind of helps prevent a kingside attack. I know there are some commentators who say that's a weak move. Tal always played it. Fisher played it. Alekin played it. Hey, it worked for them, you know. Knight a5. Now here comes the typical queenside maneuvering for black to get some queenside space, potentially. This is the reason they push the c-pawn up, so that you can drop that bishop back. If you don't do that, you're going to lose a very powerful attacker. And continuing on the queenside theme, he's at least gaining queenside space. This is beautiful chess strategy with the Ruy Lopez. This signals pop that d4 up, hit right in the center. And Tal does so. The queen is coming over here to queen 7, or c7 I mean. With the pawns, the nice thing with the Ruy, as you push these pawns, you want to situate your pieces behind them. And that's what will give the pawns their pizzazz, their oomph. Notice one thing here. Again, and you know, I'm just pointing it out so that through repetition we can kind of start getting the feel for how the grandmasters open their chess games with these wonderful openings. They have tension here in the center, don't they? I mean, the pawns are, the tension can be relieved, but they're not immediately doing that. It's more important for them to get their pieces in there, to get their pieces on the squares they want, so that they can throw in the combinations, either on the queen side, the king side, the center, whatever. but they aren't immediately taken. Sometimes they do, though. I mean, this is just this particular game. Each game is very different, right? So now the knight comes up to d2, and here we go. We're going to get this typical Ruy Lopez knight movement going, around and around and around. Rook comes to e8. There's no open file yet, but we know the potential is great because of the pawn tension. They haven't closed the center. There is huge potential to open this thing wide open, and so they're both going to have their rooks situated so that whoever gets the file gets the attack, right? This is great chess. Now, Tal didn't just sit around, meandering over here with this king, or, pretending like the grass is greener over here on h4 than it is on f3. He's not Mickey Mousing around. Look what he does. He counterattacks on the queen side. He pushes that b pawn. You're going, ha, that is so Tal. That's fabulous, man. He's going to hit the queen side first. So it's interesting that rather than releasing the tension in the center with the center pawns, Tal is relieving some of the tension in the center with the queen side. He is beating his opponent to the punch. That's really kind of interesting. So C takes the b4. Got to keep my pawns straight. C takes b4 here, and C takes b4. And the game is on. Now, what this does, and then he's going to drop back, of course, he's going to drop back his knight c6. He threatened on the from the b pawn, but notice what this did. His pressing that pawn and doing a quick pawn exchange has opened up this c file. That's really kind of interesting, isn't it? There's still tension, a little bit in the center, but now they both have a potential for an e file and a c file. That's just something to just take note of. Tal fianchettos his bishop. He wants this long diagonal. Now you can see these twin towers of strength, huh? Check that out. That bishop coming over this way, this bishop coming over this way. The queen can come over this way. We're going to have a knight hop, skip, and a jump all over this way. It's really kind of interesting, huh? Looking like a kingside, more or less, doesn't it? Well, the knight does take this b4 pawn. Now, his opponent, hard to pronounce these guys, man. Gurgenidze. G-U-R-G-E-N-I-D-Z-E. Gurgenidze. Gurgenidze, that's what I'll call him. I don't mean to offend him by mispronouncing his name. He's probably not alive now anyway, but he's not letting Tal take over the queen side, is he? No, he's coming right back at it. He says, hey, wait a minute. This is my side, and I will fight you for it. It's great chess, isn't it? I love chess like this. Watch what Tal does. Bishop b3. Now, the knight came down, took the pawn, putting the question to the bishop, touch him on a2, right? Bishop comes in. Now look at those bishops coming in. Hitting the weak f7 square here. Very interesting. Kind of cool game. Now, this knight comes in here to d3. And you say, ooh, nice. I mean, that looks like a Tal move, doesn't it? Look at that fork with that knight. Hitting this rook here and hitting the bishop over here. One of his really powerful bishops that looks like it's pointing to the king's side. Granted, it could be potentially a weak bishop. At this point, I guess you could call it that, a bad bishop. But it's an active bishop because there is still potential to open this up. So his pawns may not be on center squares at all. So it's a little premature, but this is considered a mistake. And you go, look, dude, that is a great knight fork. I would be happy to do that kind of a fork on Tal. But, and then the commentator said, do you really think Tal didn't see that? You got the world champion here, man. So what was he thinking? Well, he's trying to get the initiative because he knows who he's playing. Watch what Tal does. Lightning bolt out of the blue, baby. He brings this bishop right up there and goes, Pow, check. Take that f7 pawn. I mean, that's the weak square there, right? Fork the king and the rook. Nice. Really nice. Now, the interesting thing is, the king comes to f8. And you go, whoa, 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 hold it. King goes to f8, take the bishop. Hold on, hold on. Look, you got a queen that can come up into here, put you in check. You've got a knight that can immediately jump up here to g5, and then you've got this square to operate, putting the king in checkmate. So you're just 2 moves away from checkmate, and there's not a lot you can do against it. So he has to move over. And of course, bishop takes the rook. So Tal is up the exchange. And the knight took the bishop. But Tal still won that exchange. So that was kind of an interesting extra punch for Tal. And then he brings his queen to b1. And of course the knight has to scuttle back here to a4. Now on the outside file, it's on a good outpost. That's not a bad outpost. However, man, you're giving the queen a lot of power. You got an open file here. This queen is on this open file, but you got a rook over here waiting to dance over to here, and he'll take that file away from that queen too. That's, you know, it looks to me like that half of the board Tal's going to dominate if you're not careful. And isn't it interesting as a general rule, and again, all rules are made to be broken. You don't have to play this way with the Ruy Lopez. The basic generic idea is white goes for a king side, black goes for the queen side. But look who's doing the queen side. This is pretty good. This is pretty interesting. Sure enough. Rook c1, take that open file and put the question to the queen. And you notice the bishop still hasn't been taken because Tal has the initiative now. He is just putting his pieces there. He's putting his pieces in better spots every time, continually making serious threats, and his opponent is playing a reaction to what Tal is doing. See, the grandmasters, the really good ones, they looked for the threats and they put them in there and made their opponents react to their idea. And that's why they were so great. This is fun chess. This is great chess. The queen really has no real good squares to go to. I mean, truly, you know, she's kind of stuck there. So Tal really, his opponent really does have to block that file by putting the knight in the way. And of course, the pawn is going to take the knight. On a pinned piece, if you can attack the pinned piece, you can win the pinned piece. And we're talking Mr. Tactician. We're talking Misha, as his friends love to call him. This is the magician from Riga. He's up a power now. Ay, ay, ay. Finally, knight takes the bishop, so the exchange, Tal is still up the exchange because he got the rook, but things are getting whittled down now. And look at his position with this pawn coming up and still threatening to hit the middle. And we're talking serious file potential here. Yikes, this is going to be a rough game for his opponent. And he continues pressing the advantage. Look at this. Now he dodges over here, takes the d-pawn. He forks the queen and the bishop. And he's got that file up against the queen. This is tough chess. You know, I would have loved to have played Tal, but you know, it would have been a humiliating gesture on my part, I'm sure, but boy, what a thrill to play him, huh? Well, of course, the queen's going to take the pawn. I mean, don't kid yourself. His opponent's not a weakling. He's just not capable of beating Tal, is all. Well, queen comes up to b2. Now, he is putting pressure on the e5, because, of course, that's black's weakness. The interesting thing is, notice the queen is the one doing the babysitting for the pawn. No. That's not the duty of a queen, man. He's got to find a way to replace one of these other pieces to guard that pawn, not use his queen. His queen's needed elsewhere down here on the queen side, right? So again, you notice Tal is keeping the initiative, bumping up the queen just one. Now puts another threat on another weakness that is toward the king. He's got to guard that, and unfortunately, he's got his queen doing the guarding. So this is tough chess. And of course the solution is bishop f6. Well, yeah. Now this essentially frees up the queen so that she can do something much more powerful. Look at Tal. He is still hitting on the queen side. He pushes a4. Why not? Look, your rook wants an open file. There's no reason to leave your pawn there. All of his power are the A, B, and C files, man. Go get it. This is really phenomenal. Besides, and he's going to push the rook to b4 here, Tal is looking at this position and he's saying, you know, this c4 square right there, that'd be a great place for my knight. I mean, to put a knight right there with a rook behind you and dominate this area, threaten the queen, and hit e5 again, you'd have the queen on e5, you'd have the knight on e5, you'd have the other knight against e5. You see how he's piling it on that e5 weakness? The queen is guarding it, and the bishop's guarding it, but Tal's going to overwhelm it so he can break through. But first, he's got to clear this c4. Well, push the pawn. I mean, what? This is great chess. So rook to b8. So at this point, Tal brings his rook behind his little lady, giving him solid power on this side. This is fabulous. Now, bishop is going to develop, come up here to e6. Absolutely. And Tal is fighting for this c4 square. What he's thinking is, man, it would be nice if I could get my knight right there. If I could get my knight right there safely, I could dominate this queen side. I would put the threat to the queen. I've got it backed up with the rook. I've got the queen backed up with the rook coming into here to take over. I want to get that c4 square. This is the square he's fighting for. He's got one pawn hitting this pawn so that he can take over that c4 square. This is why the bishop came up to e6 to fight him for that square. You see, he's got it guarded once, twice, and Tal has it guarded once alone. So now he's going to fight one of the guardians, right? This is the idea behind this. So Tal's next move comes as a real shocker. He simply puts the knight on c4 anyway. That is phenomenal, isn't it? Threaten the queen. Because you can't take it after all. Because the queen comes up here, takes this rook. Queen takes the rook. Rook takes the queen. And you've got a damaging king side attack on the queen side. You break through the queen side. So the knight gets to c4 anyway. Isn't that phenomenal? Well, what's the best he can do? The best square he can put his queen on is going to be the d3 square. Come into Tal's camp and try to create some chaos. Try to create some threats. You got to get something going here. Get rid of this stupid pawn here so that your weakness isn't going to be so powerful. Because you can see he's hitting this weakness several times and he's only got it defended once. So try to distract him. Get going. Get doing something, right? How does Tal react to this intrusion into his camp? He reacts by going queen to b4, check to the king. In other words, he doesn't care where black puts his queen. He is not reacting to his opponent. He is carrying out his own threats, his own attacks, and his own threats and own attacks are stronger than what black has given him. This is a great lesson from the chess grandmasters. They don't always react to everything that happens on the board. They carry through with what they want to do. And it's a process for us to learn. I mean, we can't, yes, we intellectually know this is what they do, but to actually do it on the chessboard is a completely different animal. This is really important for us amateurs, though. It really is. Well, bishop comes to e7. That's the most powerful way to block, right? Threaten the queen back. So, the question now is, you can't take the pawn, of course. Do you want to dodge down here and swap off the queens? I don't know. Do you want to come up to here and threaten the pawn? That might be all right. What does Tal do here? Tal makes another stunning move. He takes the e5 weakness. Oh, no, and he took it. He didn't take it with that. He took it with this knight. Yeah, he takes the d5 weakness. And you go, are you serious? Yeah, he's serious. So he swapped queens. Bishop comes down here and gets this queen. The knight comes down here and gets this queen. Only Tal has accomplished something very, very important here. He has got rid of the weakness. Now he can own this square hopping to the king. So the queens have been swapped, and now the bishop comes to a3. He's got to generate something against Tal. Tal is getting way too strong here. And Tal just keeps ratcheting the pressure up. Nice tactic. Fork the bishop and the pawn. That's fabulous. That's good chess. Well, bishop drops down to g8. And rook takes a6, of course. Now Tal has a complete breakthrough on the queen side, absolutely. The rook has to come to d8. If he can get rid of some of Tal's power, maybe the attack won't be quite so powerful, right? So the question is, where's the best place to put this knight? You know, I mean, you're not going to put it here or here, of course. Down here is a waste of time. Here is a waste of time. So the only real two squares he has are here and here, and it's going toward the king. It is still centralized. So what Tal does is he takes the b pawn. Again, he ignores the threat to his piece. Isn't that fabulous? So the rook takes the knight, and Tal has a savage passed pawn. A passed pawn is much more powerful than material. This is a great lesson. This is a great lesson. Bishop comes up here to d6, hitting the knight 1 square where that little baby's got a queen. So he's got a defensive measure here. He keeps pressing that pawn. When you get past pawns, go, man, go. Yes, go in, man. That changes the whole nature of this game. Bishop comes down to b8, and Tal goes to a8. And it was here that his opponent resigned. This is one of 3 really outstanding chess games I've got of Mikhail Tal that I'll show you with the Ruy Lopez. This particular Ruy Lopez's white was simply masterful how he took it to his opponent on the opponent's own side in one traditional way that black can play the Ruy Lopez. On the queen side, Tal just blew tradition out the water. He said, forget tradition, I'm going to own the queen side. And man, he went and did it, didn't he? That's a phenomenal game. I love that game. So Anyway, there's your chess game for the day. Enjoy chessercising. Be good, have fun, do well, sleep nice. Quit taking so many blasted, stupid pills for your health problems. Eat healthier. It'll build your brain so that you can do better chess, and drink lots of water. And I will see you in the next chess video.